attack. During the 60s, Black churches were citadels of resistance. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference, also known as SCLC, is probably the quintessential example of Black religious leaders coming together to fight oppression, discrimination, and racism. SCLC traces its origins to the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott and the Montgomery Improvement Association. As the protests against oppression increased, a strategic meeting was held to enlarge the association. In January 1957, 60 people from 10 states assembled in Atlanta to form SCLC. The following month, they met in New Orleans and established a board of directors and elected officers, including Martin Luther King Jr. as its first president. The founders institutionalized their goals, strategies, and principles during those early meetings. Quote, nonviolent mass action as the cornerstone of strategy, the affiliation of local community organizations with SCLC across the South, and a determination to make the SCLC movement open to all, regardless of race, religion, or background. End quote. As the most prominent of civil rights leaders and organizers, Dr. King's preacher-passionate oratory and dedicated agitation towards serious change in the United States of America. Societal change is never easy, nor does it follow a straight path. Backlash is often swift and severe. Historical examples include Jim Crow laws and retrenchment of rights after a decade of Reconstruction that began in 1865, as well as the patient, nonviolent protests for civil rights that erupted into furious, destructive uprisings in cities across the U.S. in the aftermath of King's assassination. Today, after wide world inspiration of the election of President Barack Obama, we are now living with the rise of the Tea Party right, white terrorists reminiscent of the KKK, and the debacle of the Trump presidency with its normalization of white supremacist theories that look more like Nazi philosophy daily. In many ways, we are forced to even question the meaning of progress when we take in the devastation of misintegration, miseducation, gentrification, and the collapse of the Black community's economic base, stores, shops, and other businesses that thrived under segregation, not only in the U.S., but also in Bermuda. In fact, MLK himself expressed the fear that has since been realized in his last conversation with his faithful friend and fellow activist, Harry Belafonte. Quote, we have fought hard and long for integration, as I believe we should have, and I know that we will win, but I've come to believe we're integrating into a burning house. I'm afraid that America may be losing what moral vision she may have had. And I'm afraid that even as we integrate, we are walking into a place that does not understand that this nation needs to be deeply concerned with the plight of the poor and disenfranchised. Until we commit ourselves to ensuring that the underclass is given justice and opportunity, we will continue to perpetuate the anger and violence that tears at the soul of this nation. End quote. Alas, I digress. However, this is the point of Seba, studying the history, and Mwalimu dropping the knowledge. Truly learning, analyzing, and internalizing the lessons with the intention to shift our consciousness, change our behavior, and rise to our traditional greatness. Moving on, at the same time of intense Christian-based Southern activism, the Nation of Islam, led by Elijah Muhammad, was transforming consciousness in the North, especially among imprisoned young black men. After embracing the teachings of Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America, Wali Fard Muhammad founded the Nation of Islam in 1930. His assistant, Elijah Muhammad, became his successor in 1934. Elijah Muhammad blended the philosophies of traditional Islam, Moorish spirituality, Garveyism, and the needs of a people still suffering under the yoke of racism. With only tenuous ties to traditional Islam, the Nation of Islam had an emphasis on self-reliance, self-discipline, a strong family life, and economic independence. Also known as NOI, it was primarily concerned with liberating the consciousness of African Americans. Behaviors adopted from traditional Islam included not eating pork, abstaining from consuming alcohol and tobacco, as well as illicit drugs. Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association influence is readily apparent in NOI's philosophy of community empowerment. NOI created hundreds of businesses, including Salam restaurant chain, Shabazz bakeries, clothing brands, food markets, and skin and hair care products. NOI owns a mall in Chicago, and Security Agency Inc., run by the Fruit of Islam, provides security to neighborhoods and famous personalities. Concerned with identity, Elijah Muhammad encouraged his followers to drop their slave names and adopt a suitable Muslim name or take on X as a signification of our true African names being stolen and usurped by the oppressor. Distrustful of Eurocentric educational systems, NOI established its own education system, primarily at the elementary school level. Operating throughout the United States, the NOI curriculum emphasizes mathematics, science, Black history, and its own tenets. The liberation approach of NOI was appealing to urban Black Americans, many forced into ghetto living in the North with work conditions grossly negligent and wages substandard. Like the growth of AME churches in the South, followers of the Nation of Islam mushroomed, especially when the charismatic and oratorically gifted Malik El-Shabazz, commonly known as Malcolm X, took over the New York Mosque as minister during the 1960s. Often described as a Black nationalist organization, NOI also concerned itself with cultural identity politics during the heyday of the Civil Rights Movement. One of Malcolm X's most profound speeches addressed our racial and mental denigration imposed by white supremacy that still has relevance for us today. And I quote, "Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such an extent you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose, the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race you belong to so much that you don't even want to be around each other? Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God made you?" We'll be right back.